connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello and welcome. You're watching ASEAN in Focus. Joining me today is from our EBC Vietnam Bureau. Hello, Charlene.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Charlene Navaja from your EBC Vietnam Bureau, bringing you the latest news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. In Indonesia, medics at the Mamuju Regional Hospital are battling exhaustion and the risk of COVID-19 as they race to treat scores of people injured by a devastating earthquake on the Sulawesi Island.
COVAX is ready.
The world is on the brink of a catastrophic moral failure if rich countries hog COVID-19 vaccine doses while the poorest suffer, the head of the WHO said Monday.
Whether
The 500th anniversary of victory of Mactan in the Philippines' role in the circumnavigation of the world marks the issuance of the 5,000 peso Lapu-Lapu commemorative banknote and medal.
India's PV Sindhu cruised into the second round of the Thailand Open on Tuesday to erase the memory of her surprise first round exit a week earlier.
First to Indonesia, where medics at the Mamuju Regional Hospital are battling exhaustion and also the risk of coronavirus as they race to treat scores of people injured by the devastating earthquake on Indonesia's Sulawesi Island. Now, most of the patients are treated under the tents after the hospital's main building was damaged. Take a look.
Kita masih butuh tenda-tenda tambahan sih sebenarnya untuk perawatan. Karena ini bisa dilihat ini sudah mulai penuh. Ini sudah mulai penuh ini di sini. Jadi kalau ini penuh, di mana lagi saya mau simpan ya? Tidak mungkin. Ya kita belum berani bawa dia ke lantai 2 karena ya kondisi bangunan yang masih mengkhawatirkan.
Bangunannya langsung roboh total. Kemudian pas saya itu saya ditimpa bangunan dan tidak sadar. Tapi ada adik di sebelah yang cari saya karena saya tidak dilihat. Yang cari, alhamdulillah dilihat karena bangunan yang tertimpa itu kan kepala saya sama tangan saya yang kelihatan.
Medics are also scrambling to quarantine the COVID-19 positive patients in a bid to prevent an outbreak at the crowded open-air triage center. Some with coronavirus have been put in a prayer room common in the Muslim-majority nation at the back of the hospital. The hospital was trying to open up more rooms for surgery and erect additional tents outside to treat the injured. But fears that another quake could bring down the building added to the challenges as patients and some staff refuse to stay inside. Meanwhile, about 30,000 people have taken refuge at dozens of makeshift shelters, many little more than makeshift tarpaulin tents filled with whole families. Now, they said they were running low on food, blankets, and other aids as emergency supplies were rushed to the hard-hit region. Friday's tremor triggered panic among residents of the island, which was also hit by a 2018 quake tsunami that killed thousands. Many survivors of the latest disaster were unable to return to their destroyed homes or were too scared to go back, fearing a tsunami sparked by aftershocks common after strong earthquakes.
There is no tsunami threat to the Philippines. So the Philippines Institute of Volcanology and Seismology made the statement on Tuesday, January 19, after a strong earthquake struck Argentina on Monday, Argentina time. The GFZ, German Research Center for Geosciences, said the earthquake that hit San Juan province had a magnitude of 6.8. It had a depth of 10 kilometers, GFZ said. The U.S. tsunami warning system said no tsunami warning has been issued.
Malacanang is counting on U.S. President-elect Joe Biden to stay true to his promise to prioritize offering legal status to an estimated 11 million illegal immigrants. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque made this remark after the president-elect announced his decision to immediately ask Congress to provide a pathway to citizenship to an estimated 11 million immigrants who are in the United States without legal status. Take a look.
Ang masasabi lang natin dyan is pagdating po sa panglabas na relasyon, may continuity naman po ang Estados Unidos. Ang mabuti siguro mangyayari, ngayon pa lang, inanunsyo na ni President-elect Biden na magpo-propose siya ng batas to legalize the stay of 11 million illegal aliens in the United States. At siyempre po, may mga Pilipinong magbebenepisyo sa batas na yan.
Second question po niya, some are saying Duterte had lost an ally as the Biden administration will likely be against the administration's drug war. What is your comment on that?
Ay, wala po kaming comment dyan. Wala pong basehan yan. Ang meron po tayo ay mainit at malapit na relasyon sa bansang Estados Unidos.
Ateneo de Manila political science professor Melay Abao claimed that President Duterte has lost an ally since the Biden camp is not likely to compromise human rights issues. The Washington Post, in an article published back in November last year, also said Biden's victory presents practical challenges to policies that went unchecked during the presidency under his predecessor, Donald Trump. Last year, Roque said President Duterte would avoid making judgments about Biden until he finally gets to work with him. Democrats, like former U.S. President Barack Obama, have been critical of the administration's anti-illegal drugs campaign. Biden served as Obama's vice president for 2 terms, 2009 to 2017.
President Rodrigo Duterte on Monday said non-disclosure agreements or NDAs prevent the government from revealing the exact price of coronavirus disease or 2019 or COVID-19 vaccines from suppliers. In a pre-recorded address, Duterte said that the NDA is always included in the preliminary contracts with pharmaceutical companies.
Ito sila, every negotiation, ibang agreement na naman yan. Does not involve money. But one thing is certain, you cannot divulge the contract price agreed upon. Tapos isa, nagkakanvas lang yan. Ang akala siguro nitong mga, for lack of a better word, ayaw ko na lang magsalita. Akala siguro nila yung kontrata sa Sinovac, kontrata sa Pfizer, o yan, sa Pfizer. Gusto ninyong Pfizer, kayo mga senador. Long before pumutok to, tumawag na ako kay President Xi Jinping. Tapos sabi ko, wala kaming resources, we do not know how to make it. Please do not forget the Philippines. Sabi na. But please remember that we will first vaccinate all of our citizens, and they run into billions. Walang pakialam na. All that Galvez can do is just to come to an agreement as representative or agent of the Republic of the Philippines. He has no say sa bayaran kung saan because it is purely papel. Kunin ng manufacturer yan doon sa mga bangko. Kasi doon tayo naghiram at diretso ang bayad galing bangko to the manufacturer.
Pointed out that signing an NDA is a practice of the industry since many countries are scrambling to meet the scale of demand for COVID-19 vaccine supply. He noted that disclosing the vaccine prices before deals are finalized would be an issue of credibility and may affect the reputation of the government. Meanwhile, Duterte ordered vaccine czar Carlito Galvez Jr. to ignore congressional probes and just proceed with the government's vaccine plan. The Philippines aims to secure 148 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines from several companies to inoculate an initial 50 to 70 million Filipinos this year, with the first doses of China's Sinovac expected to arrive by February.
In a related news, according to President Duterte, there is no room for corruption when it comes to the money that the government owes to international financial institutions that will be used to buy COVID-19 vaccines, because the government doesn't hold any money. Instead, the Philippines will pay pharmaceutical companies through a signed paperwork that they will remit to the World Bank. Let's listen in again.
Ang si Secretary Dominguez din po ang tumitingin dahil kasi being yung pera po niyan ay dineliberate po ng NEDA at talaga pong yung mga tao na nandiyan po talaga is talagang maasahan po natin kasi ang po natin din yung tinatawag nating yung sa Asian Development Bank, nandiyan po si Executive Director Paul Dominguez at saka po yung World Bank. Napaka-stringent po ng ng tinatawag na transparency at saka yung anti-corruption clause. Alam naman po natin ng ADB, more than 26 countries ang namumuno po dyan. At talaga pong hindi tayo makakalusot. Kung kunyari meron tayong PECP na magkaroon ng tinatawag na mga deals. Malalaman po nila kasi yung deal po ng vaccine. Lahat po ng deals ng mga vaccine na loans sa different countries, malalaman po nila kung disadvantage po tayo. So ganun po ang ng ADB. Parang siya po ang third party na fund manager natin na pinangangalagaan din po yung kanilang pera at yung pera natin na ilo-loan po sa kanila. Hindi po tayo roon ng tinatawag nating corruption because of the World Bank integrity at saka po yung Asian Development Bank.
May I just ang ibig sabihin ni John Garbis is walang hinahawakan ang pera ang Republic of the Philippines, ang gobyerno o sino man. Ang ibayad natin ay yung hiniram natin sa bangko. Ang magpabili sa atin ng manufacturer, kunin nila ang bayad hindi sa kamay ni Galvez, hindi sa kamay ni Dominguez, hindi sa kamay ko. Papel lang yan, dalhin nila doon sa World Bank. Tapos, i-remit na nila papel lang rin doon sa kanilang account. Ang sa manufacturer. Yan walang yan. Walang house yan.
The world is on the brink of catastrophic moral failure if rich countries hog COVID-19 vaccine doses while the poorest suffer, the head of the WHO said Monday. World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus denounced the me-first attitude of wealthy nations and also blasted vaccine manufacturers for chasing regulatory approval in rich countries rather than submitting their data to the WHO to greenlight vaccine use globally.
COVAX is ready to deliver what it was created for. But in recent weeks, I have heard from several member states who have questioned whether COVAX will get the vaccines it needs and whether high-income countries will keep the promises they have made. At the first vaccines began to be deployed, the promise of equitable access is at serious risk. More than 39 million doses of vaccine have now been administered in at least 49 higher-income countries. Just 25 doses have been given in one lowest-income country. Not 25 million, not 25,000. Just 25. I need to be blunt. The world is on the brink of a catastrophic moral failure. And the price of this failure will be paid with lives and livelihoods in the world's poorest countries. Even as they speak the language of equitable access, some countries and companies continue to prioritize bilateral deals, going around COVAX, driving up prices, and attempting to jump to the front of the queue. This is wrong. Not only does this me-first approach leave the world's poorest and most vulnerable people at risk, it's also self-defeating. Ultimately, these actions will only prolong the pandemic, prolong our pain.
He said even as some countries pronounced reassuring words on equitable access, they were prioritizing their own deals with manufacturers, driving up prices and trying to jump the queue. He said 44 such deals were struck in 2020 and at least 12 have already been signed since the new year.
According to the Office of the Presidential Spokesperson, Secretary Harry Roque, the IATF has approved the recommendation that areas without long local COVID-19 transmission be declared new normal areas. However, the IATF will remain active until the Philippines achieves the so-called herd immunity, where most of our countrymen will no longer be infected with the coronavirus. Let's listen in.
Hanggang sa susunod na taon po?
Well, depende po talaga yan sa datos, no? Kasi analytics po ang ating sinusunod pagdating sa classification. Pero sasabihin ko po sa inyo, matagal ko nang sinangguni at inaprubahan naman po ng IATF na magkaroon na tayo ng deklarasyon ng mga new normal. Ito yung mga lugar na talagang matagal ng panahon walang mga bagong transmission. Sa gayon po, no, magkaroon tayo ng pag-asa na talagang may katapusan din itong COVID-19 pandemic na ito dahil although wala pang bakuna, may mga lugar na walang transmission at meron po talaga mga lugar na ganyan. No? Para matingnan natin kung po pwede na rin silang bumalik kahit papano doon sa mga normal na panahon. Pero ang tingin ko po, hindi po mawawala ng saysay ang jurisdiction ng IATF hanggang wala pa po talagang herd immunity na tinatawag. It has been approved in principle po talaga na magkakaroon na ng deklarasyon ng new normal areas, pero ang binubuo lang po ngayon yung mga do's and don'ts sa new normal. Kasi baka naman magkaroon ng new normal, bigla sila magkaroon ng rock concert. No? Yun po ang lilinawin natin, yung mga do's and don'ts in new normal areas.
All right, Charlene and I will be back right after this short break.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced, eagle news, because we live in interesting times.
mga toilet paper at tissue boxes mo. Hindi mo ba alam, mauubos daw ang mga tissue products? Bakit naman? Ang raw materials daw ng mask at tissue products ay iisa lang. Saan naman galing ang balitang yan? Ay basta, narinig ko lang din. Maraming din kayang nagpo-post sa Facebook at Twitter, kaya kung ako sa'yo, pumuha ka na din. Sige na't mauna na ako sa'yo
Huwag basta-basta magpaniwala
sa mga nakikita
o nababasa sa social media.
Magsaliksik at i-verify ang lahat ng impormasyon
na kukuha sa internet.
Tandaan,
maging responsable tayo
sa paggamit ng social media
nang hindi magdulot ng panic sa iba.
Kung paanong dapat labanan ng COVID-19.
Ay gayon din ang ating pagsugpo
sa black propaganda
at maling impormasyon.
Dennis Lu,
Lou Omelda,
General Partosa,
Tyranel Pililu,
Hannibal Arevalo,
EBC,
Japan, Euro. We live in interesting times.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. A huge fire tore through a Rohingya refugee camp on Thursday, destroying more than 550 shanty homes, while 3,500 people were left homeless. No serious casualties were reported, and agencies said. The blaze started when most people in the sprawling Nayapara camp were asleep. Tens of thousands of members of the Muslim minority who fled a military crackdown in neighboring Myanmar in 2017 live in the overcrowded camp. International aid agencies said in a joint statement the devastating fire took 2 hours to bring under control. The agencies estimated that some 3,500 people had been left homeless after more than 550 of the tin and bamboo shelters were destroyed, along with the community center and several shops. The fire started around 2 a.m. and was suspected to have been caused by a cooking cylinder, according to Bangladesh's Refugee Commissioner Rezwan Hayat, who said about 10 people had suffered injuries. Nayapara is one of a string of camps in the Cox's Bazar district of southeast Bangladesh, where more than 900,000 Rohingya now live. About 700,000 fled across the border in 2017 after the Myanmar crackdown that the United Nations has said could be genocide.
German federal police said Monday they were stepping up European cross-border cooperation to fight Vietnamese human trafficking after Berlin became a key hub in a network of exploitation in service industries. Lured by jobs in Europe, Vietnamese migrants are smuggled illegally, often through China or Russia. Carsten Moritz, head of the Human Trafficking Unit of the Federal Criminal Police Office, or BKA, told public broadcaster RBB. Arrivals from Vietnam frequently work under exploitative conditions to pay off smuggling debts, which cost around 10,000 to 20,000 euros per person. A huge network that is active all over Europe is behind trafficking from Vietnam, according to the BKA, generating enormous sums for criminals. A Europe-wide operation will be launched this year to tackle the problem, initiated by the BKA and bringing in police from countries including Poland, Britain, and the Netherlands, Austria, Switzerland, the Czech Republic, and Belgium, as well as EU law enforcement agency Europol. Police have previously found migrants, including minors, illegally working in massage parlors, nail salons, and restaurants, as well as the textile and cleaning industry. The Eastern Berlin district of Lichtenberg, home to the Dongchuan Center, one of Germany's largest Asian markets, is of central importance, according to Moritz. In March last year, German police carried out a series of raids against suspected Vietnamese traffickers and arrested 6 in relation to charges of smuggling 155 Vietnamese people to Germany. People who choose to make the perilous journey to Europe often endure appalling conditions. Back in 2019, 39 Vietnamese migrants were found dead in a refrigerated truck in Britain shortly after it had crossed the channel from mainland Europe. The ringleader, Georgi Nika, was arrested in Frankfurt in January 2020 on a European arrest warrant and then later convicted in London of 39 counts of manslaughter. Another suspected leader in the smuggling, a 29-year-old nicknamed the Bald Duke, was arrested in Germany in May, according to sources at the time. There are around 188,000 people of Vietnamese descent in Germany, according to official statistics. Many Vietnamese came as so-called guest workers to communist East Germany, staying after the fall of the Berlin Wall. Others are descended from the boat people who arrived in West Germany after fleeing their homeland at the end of the Vietnam War.
Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc has demanded subordinate levels strengthen air pollution control as air quality in many localities, particularly Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, has worsened. Particularly, the government chief tasked ministries and localities to immediately review and evaluate the implementation of regulations on dust and emission control right in the first half of 2021. He asked for promptly enhancing air quality monitoring capacity to ensure that air will be monitored nationwide by 2025. The Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment was tasked to review and report to the Prime Minister a roadmap for application of national emission standards for road motor vehicles in the fourth quarter this year. The main causes to air pollution in Vietnam come from exhaust of the transport means, construction activities, industrial production, and low rate of trees in urban areas. Fine particulate matter, or PM 2.5, is the most concerning air pollutant in Vietnam. Another problem is dust from commercial and residential construction sites. Thousands of construction sites filled with trucks that are heavily loaded with sand and cement create perpetual dust storms. More than 60,000 deaths from heart disease, stroke, lung cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease in 2016 were linked to air pollution, making air pollution a silent killer in Vietnam, according to the World Health Organization.
Back here in the Philippines, according to Dr. Rotjean Solante, chairman of Adult Infectious Diseases and Tropical Medicine at San Lazaro Hospital, all COVID-19 vaccines in the Phase 3 clinical trial can be considered effective and safe to use for all Filipinos, regardless of age or gender. The Philippines is currently in talks with 3 vaccine manufacturers, namely Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca. Let's listen in.
Is the safety of the vaccine. And I think so far, among the 3, although ang Pfizer ang nabigyan ng EUA, but for most of this vaccine, they cannot really proceed to Phase 3 unless they are not safe. No? So I think most of the vaccines now are really safe. Himay-himayin na lang natin siguro to the point na ang gusto talaga nating makikita ngayon, dapat meron na silang Phase 3 data. Kasi importante yan na pag meron kang Phase 3, at least na-test mo na yan sa mga, or nabigay mo na yan doon sa karamihan. So you can see the trend in terms of how effective and how safe the vaccine. So sa ngayon, sa mga bakuna nakikita natin ngayon, wala tayong nakikita na specific for 65 years old and above or specific for 18 to 50 years old and above. Most of these vaccines are safe to be given and effective regardless of age and regardless of the presence of comorbidities. At saka sinasabi naman palagi natin na when we do the evaluation, and then it is always based on this data na pinapadala nila, no? And we really scrutinize this data para lang at least masigurado natin na wala tayong mamimiss doon sa mga data, especially these 3 vaccines.
Malaysia's Prime Minister Muhyiddin ASEAN on Monday, January 18, announced a new end package to help frontliners and the economy as 2/3 of the country entered its second week of a strict partial lockdown. The Prime Minister unveiled a Malaysian ringgit of 15 billion, or that's around $4.9 billion, aid package called Permai, and announced that Malaysia's private hospitals have agreed to take on coronavirus patients who are being treated at a public healthcare facilities, which are already at breaking point. The amount is a fraction of the 250 billion ringgit stimulus package dished out by the government under the First Movement Control Order, or MCO, announced in March last year. According to Straits Times, the aid package will see 2.2 billion ringgit allocated to the welfare department to help affected families, while a 50 million ringgit food basket program for eligible household is also set to begin. A slew of incentives in the aid package is aimed at providing greater tax relief for Malaysians and also spur the local economy. Among others, Mr. Muhyiddin said that an exemption on the sales tax for cars, an initiative introduced last year, will be extended until the end of 2021. ASEAN in Focus, we'll be right back.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced, not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Agila Pilipinas, a 1-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Agila Probinsya. Tune into Mata ng Agila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Agila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to explain our health outdoor.
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Welcome back. The 500th anniversary of victory of Mactan and the Philippines' role in the circumnavigation of the world marks the issuance of the 5,000 peso Lapu-Lapu commemorative banknote and medal. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Governor Benjamin Diokno, whose message was read by BSP Deputy Governor and Officer in Charge Francisco Daquila Jr., said the 2021 quincentennial commemorations in the Philippines, or QCP, could not have been celebrated at a more opportune time. Let's listen for more.
As we celebrate the 500th anniversary of the first circumnavigation of the world and the victory of our ancestors in the Battle of Mactan, let us take this opportunity to give Lapu-Lapu the honor he truly deserves.
The bravest and most fearsome of them was Lapu-Lapu, the chieftain of Mactan, who led his warriors in a famous battle against the would-be conquerors. Lapu-Lapu's heroism gained the respect and admiration of succeeding generations of Filipinos. Today, we pay him the same respect and immortalize his glory through the 5,000 piso commemorative banknote and medal.
The Observer side of the banknote shows a young Lapu-Lapu, the image of the Battle of Mactan, the QCP logo, and large outrigger warship used by native Filipinos, which is known as Karawoka. The reverse side, meanwhile, of the commemorative paper bill depicts a Philippine eagle, or the Manaol, which he said embodies the ancient Visayas belief that all living creatures originated from an eagle. A coconut tree can also be seen on the reserve side, since this is well known in the Magellan Elcano expedition, and a photo of the highest mountain in the country that can be found in Mindanao, which is Mount Apo.
Malacanang on Monday remains optimistic about the country's economy after the Philippine peso-US dollar exchange rate reached 48.05 pesos to $1 last week. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque made the statement after data from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, showed that the country's gross international reserves, or GIR, for the whole year of 2020 rose to $109.8 billion in December, up to $4.98 billion from $104.82 billion of the month earlier.
Patuloy po ang kumpiyansa ng ekonomiya natin sa ating sa ekonomiya na pinatutunayan po ng napakalakas po ng pagsara ng halaga ng piso, no? Ngayon po ang halaga ng piso ay 48.05 to $1 noong Biyernes. Ito na po ang pinakamataas at pinakamalakas na pagsasara ng piso sa mahigit na 4 na taon. Ito ay dahil po sa all-time high gross international reserve. Ayon sa datos ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, ang ating gross international reserve ay nasa 109.8 billion US dollars as of January 15. Bagamat marami nagsasabi na ang malakas na piso ay hindi rin altogether nakakabuti dahil nagiging mahal ang ating exports, kahit papano po, patunay po yan na marami pong nagkukumpiyansa sa ating ekonomiya, dahilan kung bakit lumakas din po ang ating piso.
In other news, Myanmar on Monday announced it was canceling contracts with a Thai industrial giant to work on a controversial deep-sea port project. The Dawei mega project was touted as a way to encourage foreign investment in Myanmar as it emerged from decades of military rule. But it has been hit by numerous setbacks, including funding struggles and local opposition, as well as a port. The long-delayed project around the southern town of Dawei aims to develop an industrial area of around 200 square kilometers. The committee in charge of the Dawei Special Economic Zone said Monday it had lost confidence in Italian-Thai development, or ITD, after repeated issues. Announcing the cancellation, the Dawei Special Economic Zone Management Committee complained of repeated delays, continuing breaches of financial obligations under the contracts, and the concessionaire's failure to confirm their financial capacity to proceed with development. The chair of the Dawei Management Committee, Tun Naying, said Myanmar would now look for new developers to invest in the projects. It could not be reached for immediate comment. The Bangkok-based firm had already scaled back its involvement in the project in 2013, while Japan has shown some interest in getting involved.
Optimism about the global economic recovery and vaccine rollouts trumped ongoing concerns about soaring virus infections Tuesday, with most ASEAN markets clocking up big gains. Traders were also awaiting the Senate confirmation hearing for Treasury Secretary pick Janet Yellen, which is expected to give lawmakers a chance to go over Joe Biden's huge stimulus proposal. U.S. markets were closed Monday for a public holiday, but regional investors were mostly in buoyant mood as they prepare for the new president to take office, promising a vaccination blitz and a drive to kickstart the economy. Hong Kong piled on more than 2%, having jumped 1% on Monday to levels not seen since May 2019. Tokyo, Sydney, Seoul, and Taipei rallied more than 1%, while there were smaller gains in Singapore and Jakarta. Shanghai, Manila, and Wellington dipped, however. World virus cases broke 95 million this week, while deaths have topped 2 million, putting pressure on governments to quickly distribute inoculations while at the same time imposing strict, economically painful lockdowns.
And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back.
It's really PM is the key dahil tuwing 8 PM, Monday to Friday, iaait na ang kantahan at kainang rolled into one. Abangan sina JC Parker at Marcelito Pomoy because it's time to sing, it's time to eat sa It's Sing Time! Dito lang yan sa Net 25.
It's Sing Time! Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Open for Business, from vision to action.
Hello, Happy Peeps! Make it a habit to watch Happy Time every Monday to Friday at 12 noon right here on Net 25. Happy Time, Happy Time.
Welcome back. An army of volunteers helps clean up a massive haul of plastic polluting Bali's famous Kuta Beach. Let's take a look.
Beach cleaner.
Tiap harinya itu ada 200 ton. 200 ton. Sayangnya hari ini, minggu-minggu ini, sampahnya berupa plastik ini semua. Nah, kami sudah dapat mencermati, kami sudah foto-foto, sudah kami cek, ternyata sampah plastik ini tidak pernah ada yang beredar di Bali.
Jangankan wisatawan, kita sendiri terganggu gitu loh ya. Apalagi mereka. Dan saya kan khawatirnya apa yang dicanangkan oleh pemerintah Jokowi itu Bali sebagai satu destinasi yang terbaik itu akan sirna karena faktornya dari sampah kotoran. Itulah masyarakat sekarang rasanya tiap minggu 2 kali melakukan gotong royong untuk melakukan pembersihan terhadap Pantai Kuta, Sanur, Nusa Dua, Tabanan sampai di Lopina dan Candi Dasa.
Masks that helped save lives during the coronavirus pandemic are proving a deadly hazard for wildlife, with birds and marine creatures ensnared in the staggering number of discarded facial coverings littering animal habitats.
So we think that both masks and gloves are likely to pose a threat to marine wildlife. Gloves are probably confused by animals like sea turtles as food, as jellyfish, which is their primary food. The entirety of the food web is essentially at risk here because when those plastics break down in the environment, they form smaller and smaller particles, and those particles then can impact pretty much the entirety of the food web, from the smallest animals to the largest animals.
And finally, in our news, India's PV Sindhu cruised into the second round of the Thailand Open on Tuesday to erase the memory of her surprise first-round exit a week earlier. The Rio Olympic silver medalist was sheer class as she pummeled Thailand's world number 12, Busanan Ong Bamrungpan, 21-17, 21-13 in 42 minutes in Bangkok. Sindhu fell to Denmark's Mia Blichfeldt in a shock a week ago in the first of back-to-back Thailand Opens. Top seed Tai Zhu Ying from Taiwan bounced back from her final defeat to Spain's Carolina Marin in the first tournament on Sunday to beat Thailand's Supanida Katiathong 21-16, 21-11. In the men's singles, former world number 1 Kidambi Shrikant polished off Thailand's Sittikom Tamasin 21-11, 21-11. The India, now ranked 14th, was forced to pull out of last week's tournament with a calf muscle strain. Thailand is hosting 3 consecutive badminton tournaments in Bangkok, culminating in the World Tour Finals from January 27. The players have been facing off in a biosecure bubble, minus spectators, although the first tournament was overshadowed by 3 positive coronavirus cases. Thank you very much, Charlene, for joining me again today.
Thank you so much, Alma, and thank you to everyone who's watching. This is Charlene Navaja from your EBC Vietnam Bureau. We live in interesting times.
And that is the latest news in the ASEAN region. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.